So if you don't know this about me, I like to make coloring books. And this is one I made a long time ago, but never got to read to you, so I'm going to read it now. It's one called Why Do Some Women Make So Much Noise? And its subtitle is A Coloring Book About Women's Place in the World. Well, let's see if I can do this, really. You might be asking yourself why some women make so much noise, or why they should stand up for things they know are right. Right. Maybe I can do this. And protest against things that they know are wrong. And this says no war in Iraq, but it could be easily switched to no war in Iran. Or why we talk so much about women. Talk. You might even wonder why we have Women's History Month at all. And since women make up at least half the world's population, you might wonder why there are so few women leaders. And you might wonder why no American woman has ever been elected president. And you might also wonder why some people think of God as a man. To be honest, even though I am a woman, I used to wonder the exact same things. So let me tell you. Women's History Month started out as just one single week in one small town in Sonoma, California, where the city council declared the week of March 8th, 1978, to be Women's History Week in order to improve the history we were all getting in school. The hope was that for at least 1 week, all the kids would learn about the women their history books ignored. The Congress even liked the idea, and it took 10 years, but in 1987, Women's History Month became official, and March is usually considered Women's History Month. The problems for women don't just rest in the fact that they've been written out of history books, but all throughout history, women have been treated as if they are not as smart or as strong or as good as men. Did you know that women still make, and this is only a few cents difference now, so I did check, that women still make 76 cents to every male dollar? And every Asian American woman makes only 67 cents to every male dollar, and African American women only make 58 cents to every male dollar, and Latino American women make only 48 cents to every male dollar. Can you imagine asking your parents for $1 allowance and they only give you 48 cents? 48 cents would not go very far. If you only got 48 cents, you might get pretty upset. And that gets us all back to the first question. Why do women make so much noise? That's real simple. We just want to be heard. And then you could say what you want to be heard about. That's it.
For more than a century, a simple, elegant promise has hovered just out of reach of this country, the Equal Rights Amendment. Its core promise is straightforward, that equality of rights under the law should not be denied or abridged revoked by the United States or by any state on account of sex. It would write gender equity into the founding DNA of our democracy. And yet here we are in 2026, still fighting, still marching, still explaining why basic equality is a theological and moral necessity. We may want to ask ourselves, though, if the Equal Rights Amendment went far enough. To understand why this struggle remains unfinished, it might help to look back to the roots of the modern movement. In July 19th to July 20th in 1848, in a sweltering Wesleyan chapel in Seneca Falls, New York, 300 women and men gathered to do something radical. Declare that women were not mere appendages of their husbands and fathers, but full, autonomous citizens. That declaration sets the stage for the figures who carried the movement forward and the lessons we must now carry forward with some humility. Elizabeth Cady Stanton stood before that assembly and read the Declaration of Sentiments, intentionally echoing our founding fathers. She proclaimed that all men and women are created equal. Stanton's words were sharp and uncompromising. She named the systemic tyranny of her time, the denial of the vote, and the legal erasure of married women, and the lack of access to education and employment. She possessed a brilliant, fiery mind that could see the architect of patriarchy clearly. Along with her contemporaries, she set a fire that could not be put out, one that illuminates our path still and reveals where the shadows persist, including in our current fight for voting rights. Yet the vote alone proved insufficient to guarantee full liberation. 75 years ago, after Seneca Falls, in 1923, another visionary, Alice Paul, picked up the mantle. A strategist of steel, she chained herself to the White House gates, enduring hunger strikes and finally forced feedings in a campaign for the 19th Amendment. But the vote was only a doorway, not a destination. At the 75th anniversary of Seneca Falls, Paul introduced the Lucretia Mott Amendment, giving rise to what we now call the Equal Rights Amendment. She knew that without an explicit constitutional guarantee, every right women possessed would remain vulnerable to political tides and judicial whims. History, however, is a messy mirror. When we study Stanton and Paul, we must look with honest compassion and a critical eye. Their fierce focus on women's rights also offers a warning. When any movement narrows its vision, it risks leaving others behind. The urgency to secure rights for white middle-class women left out the broader Black Americans and other marginalized communities were compromised and sidelined. Stanton deployed racially charged rhetoric when white women were passed over for the vote in favor of emancipated Black men. Paul asked Black suffragettes to march at the back of her 1913 parade to placate Southern white participants. These hard truths press upon our UU conscience. When we silo the rights of any one group, even for understandable reasons, we create friction. that invites pushback, not just from the powerful, but from other disenfranchised groups. When rights are treated as a scarce commodity, zero-sum game with only so much dignity to go around, marginalized people are set against one another, fighting over crumbs for systemic power. A poor working class person might see the push for gender equity and ask, who is guarding my economic survival? A Black man enduring racial terror might look at white feminism and think, your gender may shield you from the police in ways that my skin color never will. Isolated struggles feed the very structures of division that keep us all subjugated. Our work must be joined. Beneath this friction lies an often unexamined pool of conditioning embedded in our media. Our laws do not shift in a vacuum. They move downstream from culture, from stories we tell and the art that we consume. For generations, religion, literature, theater, television have all subtly disenfranchised women and minorities by rendering them virtually invisible, treating white male experiences as universal and female and diverse experiences as peripheral. Even our childhood spaces carry this bias. Think of Sesame Street, a beautiful, groundbreaking show that values community and kindness. Yet for decades, its most iconic anchors were all male. We watched Bert and Ernie navigate friendships and life while female Muppets appeared more sparsely and secondarily. Even the Smurfs fit into a classic misogynist paradigm in which the only female character is Smurfette, who was created by Gargamel to be an agent of chaos, and only through the agency of Papa Smurf was changed into goodness. We laugh, but these cultural touchstones implicitly teach everyone that women are background characters dependent on the will of men, and no wonder we still fight to write equality into our supreme laws or try to elect a woman president. True equality requires the reshaping of our imaginations and recognizing that not one singular group or gender has been harmed by misogyny, patriarchy, and white supremacy. Not one group. All groups have been harmed by that, even white men. Also consider how women are conditioned by fear. From childhood, many are taught to move through the world in a posture of vulnerability. Fear of walking alone at night. Fear of speaking out too loudly. Fear of losing economic security if they resist an abusive partner or boss. Fear of losing the fragile protection patriarchal chivalry promises but rarely delivers. Women are trained to stay small, to accommodate, to placate, to be safe. Not me. Meanwhile, Black people and other minorities are taught a parallel deadly fear. The terror of state-sanctioned violence, the exhaustion of living under white supremacy, the knowledge that a broken taillight or a misplaced glance or simply existing in public can turn fatal. These fears are drawn from the same poisoned well. Any fear like that is drawn from the same poisoned well. When these fears are siloed, we miss that they are manufactured by a shared engine of oppression. The patriarchy that terrifies women is intertwined with the racialized structures that terrorize Black people and other communities of color. But trained to fear one another or to cling to our own fragile progress, we miss the chance for solidarity. Language, therefore, matters. Our task is to name the common engine and refuse its divide. And conquer logic, insist on a vocabulary capacious enough to hold our intersecting harms and our interdependent hopes. This is where the distinction between feminist and womanist is a spiritually clarifying experience. Alice Walker gifted us with the word womanist, and she described it as the difference between purple and lavender. Mainstream feminism has been critiqued for centering white middle-class women seeking an equal share within a broken system. Womanism is rooted in the lived experiences of Black women and women of color and refuses to isolate gender from race or class. A womanist lens understands that womanhood cannot be disentangled from Blackness and economic reality and communal survival. It is whole, flexible, and communal, asking not just how to access the existing house, but how to heal and rebuild the foundation so that everyone can thrive. We need to stop trying to fix what's broken. For this is a theological invitation. Justice that is fragmented cannot be saving. Only justice braided with love can liberate. Sometimes our wrestling with identity and language shows up in small town debates. In one Massachusetts town, residents argued for hours over renaming the historic Board of Selectmen to be a gender-neutral Board of Select Persons. Traditionalists mourned the loss of heritage. Progressive defended inclusive language. Back and forth they went until one resident stood up and suggested that they had been selectmen for 200 years. And let's call them instead select women for the next 200 and see how we like it. You laugh, but in that meeting there was silence. In a single moment, supposed neutrality shattered, exposing our discomfort with centering the feminine. We often rush to neutral terms because we are uneasy about naming and honoring the historically excluded. The point is not the word itself, but the resistance it reveals. Resistance that persists in policy and culture and power. Today, that resonance has taken a darker, coordinated turn. A rising cultural tide that some describe as conservative masculinism frames men as the true victims of modernity, pathologizing female autonomy, and recasting grievance as a strength. We see it in assaults on reproductive freedom, the casual cruelty of online discourse, and the rhetoric that reduces women to their reproductive capacity and domestic utility. This backlash does not merely oppose ERA. It dreams of rolling back the clock on all progressive issues. It thrives on the resentment of men told that women's liberation caused their economic anxiety and loss of purpose. It is organized, it is digital, and it is structural. And an atmosphere designed to make women feel afraid, and again, while exploiting the vulnerabilities of alienated men. And how can we possibly respond as UUs at this intersection of historical promise, systemic fear, and modern backlash? We return to a capacious vision, akin to the one Judy Chicago evokes, beyond siloed battles that keep us isolated. We cannot afford a feminism that fixates on corporate boardrooms while ignoring the immigrant women who cleans the office. We cannot afford civil rights movement that overlooks the specific targeted violence against trans women of color. We are called to a universal drive for civil rights that understands no one is safe until everyone is safe. Say it with me. No one is safe until everyone is safe. No one is prosperous until everyone is prosperous. No one is prosperous until everyone is prosperous. We need a movement where every person, regardless of ability, gender, race, sexuality, sexual identity or orientation or economic status or religious preference, is fully heard, profoundly appreciated, and treated as whole. This is not naive idealism. It is a disciplined, spiritual UU practice. It asks us to listen to the fears of those different from us, those who disagree with us, without defensiveness. It asks us to view masculinist backlash not with moral clarity, but with a diagnostic compassion, recognizing how patriarchy wounds even men by isolating them and feeding them resentment. It asks us to demand the Equal Rights Amendment not as the culmination of our labor, but as a basic threshold floor upon which we build a society of care. And it should say gender, not sex. This new ERA with a broader definition vision will not finish the work, but it will secure a stronger foundation so that work can flourish. Let us therefore march with the intellectual clarity of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and the unyielding tactical courage of Alice Paul, but most importantly, with the intersectional wisdom of Alice Walker's womanist vision. Let us name fear's engine and refuse its logic. Let us repair our imagination so that the law can follow. Let us build with stubborn hope a world where equal is not a radical demand, but a foregone conclusion.
Good morning, dear ones. Wow, look at all these men and women. This is wonderful. Thank you for coming today. Two people told me they thought I was a cutout standing with the signs. I've been called worse things. Anyway, this poem today, ERA, women's rights, human rights, it just felt too big to write about. And so I've contained my joy and my honor to one person. The poem is called Mother Marches to Her Own Drum. Before they lived in a tar paper shack with an outhouse full of spiders and a hand pump gushing water into the tin bucket. Before the Great Depression, they had a real house built brick by 3 uncles. Her earliest memory was of tightrope walking the foundation. Before my mother knew the disconnect of every fund funneled into her father's alcohol, she attended a rural school. Its library contained on a dozen shelves behind the teacher's desk. She bragged about reading them all several times and memorizing impossibly long passages. Before she finished high school, she had to depart. Pregnant. She had no other choice. Forced to marry the father, she left him quickly on the heels of his first beating. After she left home, she worked as a switchboard operator. Then she joined the Navy, took her first train ride from Ohio to Florida, marched under the Vero Beach heat in the company of her Navy wave sisters. As an only child, she loved their hijinks and freewheeling joy. She convinced the base commander to hire her as his secretary, knew neither shorthand nor touch typing. But she was intelligent. She was scrappy. She knew how to get things done. She knew how to get what she wanted. After she met my father on the base, they secretly held hands from the roof, watched for enemy planes. After being discharged, they married, moved to Chicago, had twins. She helped him through law school, never let her lack of a diploma hold her back. And all her life, she loved her country with such fierceness. Into her 80s, she was asked to hang a ceremonial wreath every Memorial Day. After she refused dialysis, chose when and how she would die. She wrote goodbye letters to surviving wave friends. How she would have loved the Navy, hanging a silver medallion on her tombstone in honor of her service. Her final truth to me, in a whispered loop, it was so hard. She said, "Tell them I did my best." Yes, she did, Mom. Yes, she did. Thank you.
May the long time sun shine upon you. All love surround you. And the pure